I've given many different types of offerings over the years, from large racks of meat to bottles of whiskey, offerings of my time and meditation or dedication, or even just a handful of oats. In this video, we're going to be discussing the 3 biggest offerings that I give most of the time. If this is your first time at my channel, welcome. I typically make videos on paganism, spirituality, a bit of shamanism, ancient religions and cultures, and lots of Scotland. I have over 500 videos when it comes to these subject materials, and in this video we're going to be continuing a new process that I'm doing, and that is discussing a main topic like this. We're also going to be talking about Handpoke tattoos because that's my current career path, and why I chose Handpoke, what that is, and all the things around it. And then we're going to be answering a community question on my travels. And if you are interested in having your own community question answered at the end or beginning of these videos, please make sure you submit a comment below with a question, and I'll be happy to get back to it hopefully in a future video. So yeah, welcome or welcome back. Skål, Sancheval. What I want to start with is perhaps the most transformative offering, Quaker oatmeal. All right, it doesn't have to be Quaker oatmeal, but when it comes to everyday offerings, something that you can give, this is what, $4 for this whole thing. Oats are an amazing offering to give. Now, oats are definitely connected to more the Celtic ancestry. I mean, oats and grains have been around since the dawn of our human history. And so if you're looking for something that connects you to, no matter who your ancestors are, grains are an amazing thing. So it doesn't have to be oats, but just grains in general. But the thing I really love about oats is giving them as an offering. Something's going to come eat that within an hour. And I've watched it happen at this last event we had for the Fellowship of Northern Traditions. We left oats and other such things out, and there was just little chipmunks eating away and squirrels, and it was just adorable to watch. And I think especially if you're giving offerings to the land, I think giving something that is definitely edible by the creatures of the land is very important. Now, what I can say historically, particularly when it comes to the Celts, is the Romans recorded that the Celtic people ate things such as oats, barley, rye. They were eating these things already, especially in porridges, and porridge is obviously a big staple of the UK still today. And so you can even turn your grains into breads and leave those as offerings. But if you're needing something quick, easy, but also safe and really impactful, oats are an absolutely amazing offering. Where I'm filming for you now, and where a majority of you watch these videos, is from North America. And honoring the land here is a bit different because someone like myself, who has a small amount of Native American heritage, but very clearly is very European, it can be very difficult to honor the land here because are we going to honor it in a Celtic way? Give the land some oats like they're fairies? And my personal feelings about this, if you're in North America and you want to honor the land of America, the biome that is here, you should do that in a way that is from the indigenous people here. This is a slippery slope thing, and I don't know the answer to it. I can just tell you my own experiences. When honoring the land here, I feel doing it in a way that is indigenous to the people from this land, I think is the most powerful and most potent. And so in the question of like cultural appropriation, is it culturally appropriating to honor the land in an indigenous way? I don't believe so, as long as it's done with respect. Now, obviously, if I put on a Native American headdress, a cheesy loincloth from Amazon, and started like trying to do a fake, song in the Native American language, that could be when it gets closer to cultural appropriation. But in my opinion, if you're honoring the land, if you're doing something respectful and you're going at it from the right way, I think honoring the land in an indigenous way, no matter where you are, I think is a very powerful thing. And how to do that as far as offerings is going to be tobacco. Now, the other one you can do, and I didn't have it with me, is cornmeal. Cornmeal in particular is very important to the Hopi people. Hopi people being from the Southwest, and so offering tobacco to the land. There are several different ways to do this. I have heard about tying it up into a medicine bag and then putting it into a stake into the ground. But what works for me and what I think will work for you is just simply taking it and presenting it to the world around you, presenting it to the land, and then giving it back to the land. In particular, if you're taking like bones or flowers or you're foraging, it's what I've seen in my research is it's always good if you're foraging from the land, you're always leaving tobacco in return for the blessings of the land. And especially when it comes to North America and the age of the data center, I think we could all deal with a little bit more honoring of the land, especially in an indigenous way. Now, when it comes to mead and beer, this is a very common offering for people that are into Norse mythology, Norse paganism. You've seen me give it. I think a lot of videos people remember me as me going out into a storm and pouring out the beer for Thor.
Happy to oblige.
It's pretty cool. And we're going to talk more about this when it comes to like whiskeys, but alcohol isn't good for nature, as pouring out alcohol can damage the root systems of trees and plants. Now, obviously, whiskey, much higher alcohol content, much higher damage. Beer, much lower alcohol content, even mead. So if you're not doing it too frequently, I think it should be fine. But yeah, there's something communal about sharing alcohol when it comes to mead and beer. When it comes to sharing it with the earth, when it comes to sharing it with other people. And I think that's what I would encourage you in this section is, yes, you can pour it out as an offering for the gods if you want to, when it comes to pouring out mead for Odin, or when it comes to pouring out alcohol, beer for Thor. But I would encourage you, look at beer and mead as a social offering. If you want to connect more to people, connect to them in a spiritual way. Don't just get drunk. Get there and share with them, commune with them, because that's what these were in the ancient past. It was a way for people to connect with one another. And so, yeah, I would encourage you to think a little bit differently about your mead and beer offerings. Leave them spiritually, but there's a spiritual connection between humanity, and mead and beer be a really beautiful way to connect on a deeper level with someone you want to go closer to. So in the conversation around hard spirits and whiskey, this is where it gets a little tricky yet again. So whiskey is not good. Alcohol is not good for the land. Now, if I took a little bit of my very sweet tomato whiskey, which this is a good offering if you know your whiskey. If I took a little bit and just poured out a little bit, so much, that's not going to necessarily end the planet. But if you start coming to the same spot, you have an altar outside, a place you go to all the time, and you're pouring out whiskey all the time, into the earth, it actually might do some damage to the root systems of the plants around you, and you might start noticing plants dying off. And so whiskey's high octane alcohol, be very careful with. And again, I'm saying this, that's why I brought my sweet tomato whiskey, because when I give this whiskey, it ties so much to my Scottish heritage. And so even though I'm not in Scotland, I absolutely love this whiskey. I've gotten to tour the facility, I got to do it with friends. And I just think it's really good for people that don't like peaty, very like earthy whiskeys. I really like this one. Getting to see like, hey, there's the stream that makes this whiskey is really cool. And so when I'm wanting to connect to Scotland and I'm missing it, or I want to connect to my Scottish ancestors or the spirits there, I leave a little offering of this, but it's not very large. So just be careful when it comes to high octane spirits. And something to also note in my workings with shamanism, a lot of people that practice shamanism today, they won't use whiskey unless it's for like harder, darker spirits, to keep those more, I don't want to say demons, but the heavier spirits away. And so I know myself, especially in making videos for this channel, I've given whiskey into the fire so many times. I've poured out entire bottles of whiskey for Odin. But as I've continued to learn and grow, I've connected more to the simplicity of offerings. Pouring out an entire bottle of whiskey, you don't need to do that. Having small moments of gratitude, and for me, that could be here at 7:47 in the morning, thinking about Scotland, my love for it. That's the stuff. My ancestors, to a land that holds me, to a land that I love so very much. I've received so many blessings from. Hail to Scotland. And that's it. That can be all it is. You don't need to pour out a whole bottle of whiskey. This is a potent spirit, and so treat it with potency. I guess we should also talk about, for the skeptics out there, and I'm one of the skeptics, of why do we give offerings? Are the gods real? Do the gods receive the offerings in the afterlife, or in the supernatural world that they live in? When I pour out some beer for Thor, is he there in Valhalla or in his hall, pulling out the beer from an ale horn and drinking it as well? Probably not. And for me, offerings are not necessarily about giving it to Odin. It's about making it a sacrifice for yourself through Odin, if that makes sense. This is where I would pull in a bit of the Shintoism I've been researching lately. Offerings are not necessarily about giving to the spirit world. It's about giving yourself a moment to connect to the spirits. And no matter how that is for you, if it's beer or mead to historically connect to Norse mythology, Norse paganism, Scandinavia, if it's oats to connect to the land, it doesn't matter. What matters is taking that moment to give something, to make a small sacrifice, and to take that moment of time to reflect on the world of the spirits. Handpoke tattoo. What is it? It's quite simply the needle, ink, tattoo. Very simple. And one of the questions I get asked all the time about handpoke tattoo is whether or not it hurts more. For a lot of people assume that it actually does hurt more than in a machine tattoo, but in all honesty, it hurts less. It's still a tattoo. It's still ink being put into your skin. It still hurts, but it's definitely different. It's definitely more meditative in every sense of the way. I find it to be more natural to the body, just because it's causing less trauma to the skin. And that kind of goes into the next question people usually ask, which is how fast do they heal, or how well do they heal? And the answer is really well. If you get a machine tattoo, they typically take about 2 to 3 weeks to fully heal. And there's a more dramatic healing process. You're going to have a lot more flaking skin. You're going to have a lot more, potential blood and the buildup and things like that. Whereas a handpoke tattoo, I mean, the beauty of it is, yes, I'm going to put a bandage on it after I'm done. But so many people, especially at festivals, they take the bandage off pretty soon after getting the tattoo, and it's basically fully healed. So the short answer of why I prefer a handpoke tattoo is because it's more meditative, it's more spiritual, it calls more to the ritualistic side, it's more historical. Humans have been doing a variation of handpoke tattoos for thousands of years, if not our entire human history, whereas the machine tattoos have only been around for like 150 years. And so it's something that connects me to my ancestors. It's something that connects me to the tattooing ancestors. And I believe it's something that can help my clients connect more to their spiritual connections, their ancestors, their lineage. And I think that's just really cool. I really want to create a balance when it comes to the questions I answer and this kind of new format I'm doing, going from heavier pagan subjects to more lighter, fun questions, because I like to have a good time and I want to share that with you. So today's question's a fun and light one. It comes from Stephen Casano Music. With all of your travels, which places have felt the most spiritually powerful or transformative to you? And what was it about those places that affected you so deeply? So, as we've already kind of discussed in the whiskey portion of this video, Scotland is probably the number one answer here, and I'll share a little bit. So this was a big part of my journey. For those of you who don't know, I started the channel as a Norse pagan, focusing exclusively on Norse mythology, practice of Odin worship, of worshiping the Norse gods, and as an authentic way as possible in the lands of Kentucky where I was filming. And I made hundreds of videos. Probably the majority of the content on this channel is about Norse paganism, and is why most people found their way to this channel. And everything changed for me when I started traveling. When I took up the Wanderer staff, I sold all of my possessions in the States, and I started traveling Europe for the majority of the years, for several years. I went to so many different countries. I went to first Germany, and from Germany I started spreading out. I went to Scandinavia. I've been to every single one of the Scandinavian countries, almost all of the Nordic countries. Haven't been to Iceland yet. And of course I've been to Scotland, the UK, and I've traveled all over England, Ireland, Wales. I've seen Greece, I've been to Switzerland, I've been to Ecuador, I've been to so many wonderful and amazing places. And the thing that was so fascinating to me is that as a Norse pagan, as someone who was worshiping the Norse gods for a very long time, when I actually got to Scandinavia, when I stood in the fjords of Norway, I didn't feel anything. I was really drawn back by this, and it really affected me. And it made me really have I don't want to say a crisis of faith, but maybe a questioning of identity. And then I go to Scotland, I go to England, and I have these amazing, intense spiritual connections. And I do think it's because of ancestry. And I know that's a complicated conversation when it comes to paganism today, of whether or not you can worship gods that you have no ancestral connection to. And I believe the answer is still yes, but I do believe that you should go to the lands. If you have no ancestry to Scandinavia, and you want to connect to the Scandinavian gods, you should definitely go to Scandinavia. And I think a lot of that is because our identities as Americans, particularly, is very different than a Scandinavian. And I think if you want to honor the Norse gods in an authentic way, you should understand Scandinavian culture as it survives today. And I definitely say this, some of the most passionate people I know in Scotland that are really trying to help and preserve Scotland and care so much about it have absolutely no Scottish heritage. And I think land really has an ability to capture us. So whether it's through the beauty and the majesty of a land, or if it's through ancestral connection, I think those are the key components when it comes to connecting to a place spiritually. And so I think Scotland hit me in both ways. I think I definitely have Scottish heritage, quite a lot of it. And then the pure beauty and magic and solemnness of Scotland, it just absolutely captured my heart, captured my soul. It just became a very important place to me, and it's continued to become an important place to me in many different chapters. I want to definitely hear from you after this video. What are some of your favorite offerings? Do you use the ones I talked about in this video, or is there something else you go to? I don't think I mentioned like cream, milk, honey. These are all great offerings as well. Also, be sure to follow along on Instagram, where I post more of my tattoo journey if that's something that interests you. Of course, if you're interested in getting a tattoo in Cincinnati, I'd love to hear from you. And finally, of course, if you do want to have your question answered in an upcoming video, whether it's a small, fun question or something large and grand, I really love to look into that question and possibly answer it for you in next week's video. With that, I will see you next week for another video here at the Wisdom